So if you would all open your books, tablets, phones, computers, brains, whatever you may have, to Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 9, Chapter 16, verses 7 through 9. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So there's no purport to text 7 and 8, so I'll simply read the Sanskrit and English, and then we'll move on to text 9. Varena Chandayam Asha Prita Satyavati Sutaha Vavrehatanam Ramopi Jivitam Chasmriting Vadhe. Jamadagni, the son of Satyavati, was very much pleased with Parashuram and asked him to take any benediction he liked. Lord Parashuram replied, "Let my mother and brothers live again and not remember having been killed by me. This is the benediction I ask." Text 8. Utas hus te kushalino nidrapaya evang jasa pitur vidvang stapo viryang ramash chakre suvidvadham. Thereafter, by the benediction of Jamadagni, Lord Parashuram's mother and brothers immediately came alive and were very happy, as if awakened from sound sleep. Lord Parashuram had killed his relatives in accordance with his father's order because he was fully aware of his father's power, austerity, and learning. Text 9, please repeat. Ye Arjunasya Sutta Rajan Smarantaha Svapitur Vadham Rama Virya Para Bhuta Lepire Sharma Na Kvachit. Yea, those who Arjunasya of Kartaviryarjuna, Sutta sons, Rajan, O Maharaj Parikshit, Smarantaha, always remembering, Swapitu Vadham, their fathers having been killed by Parashuram. Rama Virya Parabhuta, defeated by the superior power of Lord Parashuram. Lepire, achieved. Sharma, happiness. Na, not. Kvachit, at any time. I apologize to everyone if that's unusual. When the deity's open, I have to. So translation by Srila Prabhupada. My dear King Parikshit, the sons of Kartaviryarjuna, who were defeated by the superior strength of Parashuram, never achieved happiness, for they always remembered the killing of their father. Please repeat, my dear King Parikshit. The sons of Kartaviryarjuna, who were defeated by the superior strength of Parashuram, never achieved happiness, for they always remembered the killing of their father. purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jamadagni was certainly very powerful due to his austerities, but because of a slight offense by his poor wife, Renuka, he ordered that she be killed. This certainly was a sinful act, and therefore Jamadagni was killed by the sons of Kartavirya-Arjuna, as described herein. Lord Parshuram was also infected by sin because of killing Kartavirya-Arjuna, although this was not very offensive. Therefore, whether one be Kartavirya-Arjuna, Lord Parshuram, Jamadagni, or whoever one may be, one must act very cautiously and sagaciously. Otherwise, one must suffer the results of sinful activities. This is the lesson we receive from Vedic literature. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So it's not a very long purport, but it's extremely rich. And it's very endearing that we're reading this in Sri Vrindavan Dham, because in Srila Prabhupada's final pastimes in 1977, when he was here in Sri Vrindavan Dham, preparing to go to his next preaching assignment, I have heard a story of this time from His Holiness Giriraj Swami. So Giriraj Maharaj, he said that at one time Srila Prabhupada had called for him, and Giriraj Maharaj came to his bedside and asked Srila Prabhupada how he could serve him. And Prabhupada very pleadingly asked Giriraj Maharaj, when I depart, how will this movement go on? And Giriraj Maharaj, being a very sincere soul, very sincere and chaste disciple of Srila Prabhupada, he very humbly submitted that if we just chant and we just follow the regulative principles in the process of sadhana bhakti, everything will be perfect. And Srila Prabhupada said no. Actually, what is required is great intelligence. And then, of course, taking that in context and looking at all of Srila Prabhupada's purports, conversations, letters, morning walks, so many times Srila Prabhupada said that it's up to us to rack our brains how to bring Krishna to everyone. So in this purport, Srila Prabhupada states that one must act very cautiously and sagaciously. Does everyone know what the word sagaciously means? It's kind of a 68 cents SAT word, but it means considering things with great intelligence, very carefully, instead of, although we have to put things in our own words sometimes, this time I want to read the dictionary definition of sagaciously. Having or showing keen mental discernment and good judgment, wise or shrewd. So it's kind of a tall order. To think and behave sagaciously doesn't come naturally to many of us. And so we have to follow that order of racking our brains to somehow or other consider very seriously, very deeply, and very cautiously, as Prabhupada says, how to apply Krishna consciousness, both to ourselves and to others. So, it's very interesting that Srila Prabhupada states these things in this purport which is right in the middle of a chapter that describes a Shaktivesh avatar killing his mother and brothers on the order of his father after killing a king. And then, in a very sagacious or shrewd way, he confirmed. He manipulates his father into bringing his mother and brothers back to life. So we have, by external vision, by our simply mundane understanding, it looks like anger is going on, violence is going on, deceit is going on. All these things are happening, and even Srila Prabhupada says that one must suffer the results of sinful activities. But because we're being called on to think and behave sagaciously, we also have to understand that, yes, these are the lessons that we're learning, but do we criticize Parashuram or Jamadagni or any of these other great souls in our minds, or what to speak of out loud, by thinking that they're behaving sinfully? That's actually not our place. Making that judgment is above our pay grade. We take the lesson for ourselves. It may be Leela that all these things are being all these pastimes are being performed by these great souls simply to teach us something, and that there's no real sin involved. Or it may be. We don't know. Krishna knows. So casting judgment on individuals and their actions is not as important as taking the lesson that we can from the activity itself. Does that make sense to everyone? So these are wonderful, amazing pastimes by great souls that we can't even understand their glories. Even Kartavirya Arjuna, we read earlier, was not up to standard for a Kshatriya king. But he was killed by Parashuram. You know, all of us are going to have to leave our bodies one day. Show of hands, who would like to be killed by Parashuram or another incarnation of Krishna? Yeah, me too. Of course, that's actually going to happen for all of us, because Krishna in the universal form is killing everyone. He's behind it all. So, all these great souls, they're worshipable by us. They're setting wonderful examples. They're in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And we're so fortunate. We're here in Sri Vrindavan Dham, and Sri Vrindavan Dham is the place where Krishna's pastimes went on, and allows us to remember and follow as closely and strictly one of the three of the primary methods of devotional service: Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam. So we can remember Krishna so easily here, because everywhere we look, Krishna did something. Not only did he do something, he's doing something now. And what he's doing now is he's reciprocating in wonderful and blissful ways with all of his devotees. And so we're always surrounded by so many great souls in the holy Dham. I'm sorry, but I have to thank Panchagoda Prabhu. I know he's a little embarrassed, but 27 years ago, I had no adhikar to come here. I had no even right desire. But Panchagoda Prabhu was so kind, like a kicking, screaming, silly baby, he brought me here. And dragged me to Sri Vrindavan Dham, and somehow made me addicted to coming here. So thank you. And we're also surrounded by many other great souls Prahladananda Maharaj, Dharmatma Prabhu, my dear godbrother, Shriman Mahamantra Prabhu. You've all given me so many blessings and shared with me your realizations, your experiences, and your reciprocations with Krishna. And it's impossible to even put into words or even feel the proper amount of gratitude that I should for giving me the opportunity to be of some service, some value here. So thank you for that. That's all I can say. So one thing that occurs to me is that lately we see, and it's natural, there's so many devotees in the Krishna consciousness movement. It's growing every day. That's the glory of Srila Prabhupada's movement. But the more people you have, the more individuals you have, the more diversity comes. And Srila Prabhupada wanted unity and diversity, but in Kali Yuga, where it's an ocean of faults and the age of quarrel, diversity rarely can be parsed with unity. So we see so many different opinions. In political parlance, they call it the left and the right. Sometimes they say the liberal and the conservative. And we see one side is insisting that they are right, the other side is insisting they're right. And eventually, if we're not very careful, it degrades into what's called ad hominem attacks. That we look at other Vaishnavas who are sincerely trying and struggling, like all of us, to find the best way to serve Srila Prabhupada's mission and to be Krishna conscious devotees. And that's the spiritual vision, is to see that there can be different parties. Even in the spiritual world, we hear about different parties of gopis, of gopas. We hear about the pastimes as a cowherd village, and then, of course, the pastimes of Krishna acting as a kshatriya in Mathura and Dwarka. So diversity is not a bad thing. In fact, being somewhat of a reductionist, I like to see that we can consider diversity amongst different living beings as like diversity in a family. So in a family you have a father, a mother, and in most families, children. And in those families, there's almost always some sort of friction, some sort of conflict. But if the family is functional, then those conflicts don't degrade into hatred or accusations. The young generation, which we absolutely need, which is our future, will always find some way to improve upon the previous generation, whether it's legitimate or not. They'll always have something to say that, you guys, that's the way it was in your time, but you don't understand the way it's like now. So many of us came from the hippie generation, and that was the defining philosophy of that time. And then the parents also, they say to the children, look, I've been through what you've been through. And one saying we have in the West is, I'm no spring chicken. And I do understand, but try to take the benefit of my experience. But if the child thinks, well, you know what, this old person has outworn his welcome, better kick him to the side, put him in a nursing home, and let's go about our own way of doing things. We all know from experience and seeing it, especially in the West, that doesn't work. All you get is disaster on all sides. And then on the other side, if the parents think, these stupid children, They're just going to make all sorts of childish noises, but they don't have anything really valuable to say. Let's just go about our business, and when the child speaks, a child is better seen and not heard. This is another philosophy that we hear in the West. Neither of these philosophies is in accordance with Vaishnava behavior. It's not in accordance with even standard normal etiquette. So we can make the comparison of the liberals, the left side, with the children, who are very enthusiastic to try new things and improve on the old system. And then we can see the adults, the parents, as the conservative, who have a great body of experience to offer. You know, they say that good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment. So they've made so many of the mistakes, and that's not a criticism, that's a glory. They've made so many of the mistakes so that we don't have to, as younger people. So we should hear from them. And also, so that we can progress. You know, the left likes to call itself in many places progressive. And so we hope that they live up to that, because Prabhupada constantly said progress and progress in spiritual life, move forward. We're a movement, Krishna consciousness movement, so we should move forward. So it's important that we hear the progressive opinion and the progressive strategy, but without being informed by those who came before, it's destined to fail. So we can see how they all work together. This is what's important, is that's where you get unity in diversity. So what's more important, unity or diversity? Anybody have an answer? Maharaj?
They're both equally important.
Thank you, Maharaj. That's exactly the right answer. In fact, the question itself that I just posed is kind of silly. They're equally important. If they don't work together, you're going to get an imbalance. So we find in this pastime of Jamadagni, Kartaviri Arjuna and his sons, and Parashuram, there's certainly a dysfunction going on. At least from our external point of view, that's the lesson we're learning, that there's this dysfunction of imbalance. Because as a Brahmin, as a great sage, Jamadagni, one of his first duties is forgiveness. They say that a Brahmin is known, the quality that a Brahmin is known for is forgiveness. So first of all, forgiveness towards his wife for committing mental adultery. Secondly, gratitude. You know, she had a momentary lapse in judgment, certainly. But she gave him sons, she took care of his household, and even after the lapse in judgment, she humbly and submissively brought the ingredients for having the fire sacrifice. So instead of seeing what she has done positively, he somehow or other assessed the one fault. And for that fault, he had her killed. So if that's the way we see, if we see that this person has done so much, or we don't see that this person has done so much, but we only see that this person has done so much bad, then the sons of Kartaviri Arjuna or their descendants may come and kill us. And I'd rather be killed by Parshuram. So these are some of the things I've been thinking of. That forgiveness and gratitude, these are two pillars that we should plant in our hearts very firmly. If the first instinct we have is to feel grateful, and the first reaction we have to some reverse in life is forgiveness, That will help us remember Krishna. Because gratitude comes if one has read and understood Srila Prabhupada's books and Srila Prabhupada's teachings. Gratitude comes from understanding that whatever anyone does comes from Krishna, because he is the ability in man. So real gratitude is appreciating what everyone does for us because Krishna has empowered them and engaged them in doing it. So if we think like that, then we can remain Krishna conscious. Then we have a better chance of Krishna's protection. Of course, Krishna is independent. He can do whatever he likes. But from what I've understood, Krishna likes it when we appreciate his devotees. And who isn't a devotee? Actually, all living entities are devotees. Just many of them have forgotten. So the greatest service we can do for them is to help them remember. And how are we going to help them remember if we're accusing them or harassing them or attacking them in so many ways? I'm sure that at least 95% of the people, actually I shouldn't say that, I'm sure a large percentage here, I don't know what the percentage is, but a large percentage of us here weren't born knowing and understanding all the aspects of Krishna consciousness. At some point we were taught, we were preached to, we were told this is the best thing in life, and we accepted it. So under those circumstances, when we first came to Krishna consciousness, when we were first offered the opportunity to read Srila Prabhupada's books and act within his mission, who of us was attacked or accused or harassed into doing it? I come from the United States. I come actually from the south, the southeast of the United States, where it's very, very common that you go out into the street and you meet what we affectionately call Bible thumpers. Bible thumpers, they come along with their Bibles and they smack the book and they say, "You're going to hell, you're a bad person, you don't surrender to Jesus, and therefore your life has no value, so surrender to my church, my pastor, my understanding of Christianity, and then you'll be saved." So can anyone here guess how effective they are with this strategy? Not so much. So if we adopt similar strategies by just beating people over the head with the Bhagavad-Gita or the Srimad Bhagavatam, we'll get similar results. We'll also get similar ridicule. These kinds of people are not very popular, especially in educated circles. That's not to say that Christianity doesn't have something to offer to the world. Legitimate and sincere followers of Lord Jesus Christ were very much respected by our founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada. So it's incumbent upon us to follow in those footsteps. But that's not what we're talking about. So it's important that when we go out and we preach and we speak to people, we have the proper respect for them. Perhaps we may not respect their specific activities at the time. We may not respect their choices. You know, they say there's a reason for everything in life, but sometimes the reason is you're foolish and you made bad choices. So yeah, there's so many people out there that fall in that category. But that's just considering the time factor. That's just considering at a particular time, place, and circumstance, they've been affected by the modes of nature in such a way that's embarrassing to them. Prabhupada actually said that the living entity is embarrassed in so many ways. But if we're kind, and we're respectful, and understanding, remembering when we also were embarrassed by being harassed by the modes of material nature, then we can offer them Krishna consciousness. We can offer them Srila Prabhupada's blessings and gifts in the form of his books and the association of his followers with love in our hearts. That's very important. Anyway, I hope I didn't go off on too many tangents, but as I am apt to do, and especially when surrounded by so many great souls, I would really like to hear from you. So, are there any comments, questions, chastisements? One thing is that in addition to being very grateful that you all are here and have allowed me to speak, I aspire to live to be corrected by all of you. So please don't be shy if I have said anything that needs adjustment. But do please be gentle. Yes, Boo.
Gopal.
Yes. Hare Krishna, Gopal.
Hare Krishna. You were speaking about diversity and unity.
Yes.
And so, especially in regards to younger devotees who are very concerned about being more diverse. But diversity, if a literal translation means change, to be very diverse means you are willing to accept new things. But in our philosophy, the instructions, the teachings, and the methodology in which one can pass beyond this material world into the spiritual world doesn't allow for any change. It has to be adhered to precisely as we're reading in the Srimad Bhagavatam, and again and again and again and again and again and again. These lessons are there to solidify or to make it more apparent to us the path in which one must adhere to. So one thing that Prabhupada emphasized always is that in our preaching methodologies, do not add any water. And so if we dilute to accommodate the liberal or the right or the left, I don't know.
It's always changing which one is left and which one is right.
Both. Then the philosophy becomes weakened. And in this weakened state, Krishna says that you have to come again to solidify again the proper method. So I'm not sure if you can clarify more on that being diverse.
Sure. So you use the example of water, which is a liquid. So it is very important that the liquid, the water or the juice that we're giving is exactly the same pure water, juice, or nectar that we were given by Srila Prabhupada. However, liquid cannot exist without a container. So it's important that when we offer this nectar to others, that we offer it in a container that is attractive to them, because otherwise they'll deny it. So that's why it's very important, as Prabhupada says in the purport, sagaciously, that we have to think very deeply what is the water and what is the container of that water. So there's so many things that we can think and so many logical arguments that we can make amongst ourselves, but what it says in the Mahabharata that Srila Prabhupada quoted many times, Mahajana yena katasa panta, that really we have to hear from the great souls. And we're so incredibly fortunate in ISKCON, and in our entire Gaudiya line, that we have a plethora of great souls to hear from. And it's not necessarily that you will hear from all the great souls. Some of them, Prabhupada also said that we practice Krishna consciousness with like-minded Vaishnavas. So there are differences of opinion. But the pure nectar does have to remain the same. You're 100% correct. But the container may change. And so we have to think very deeply, am I changing the content, or am I changing its container? And we can see the difference between Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's preaching and the preaching of our A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Both Prabhupads, in fact. But according to time, place, and circumstance, the presentation was different. Now, was the nectar different? I don't think so, because the result, the proof of the pudding is in the tasting. So if Prabhupada gave us anything different, then how could he have created so many great souls that are sitting before me today? That's the proof of the pudding. And Prabhupada also asked us, he said, read my books and become very, very familiar with them, but then present them in your own words. So it's important that we don't change anything, but it's also important that we understand our audience and that we present that pure thing to them in such a way that they can accept it. Is that okay? Sikhi Mahiti Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Just to add or clarify a little more, we're talking about unity university. As you mentioned in your reply, the question of diversity doesn't apply to chain 16 rounds or regular principles. Those things we don't change.
Right.
Somebody wants to change that, and now we can argue. Even Prabhupada, when he initiated his disciples, he said, chain 16 rounds, all regular principles. Pretty much the same for everyone. So the other things, the diversity and how should it be helpful, or should it be saying now, preach this way, should preach that way. In the end, you have to judge by the result. So we don't know until someone tries. And if someone's humble, and they'll recognize, okay, this is good, okay, this is bad, don't do it. So that's the diversity I think that you're discussing here. Not so much, is Krishna God, chant 16 rounds, or should we chant 4 rounds? And so the Lord is, okay, we want to chant 4 rounds. Okay, go to another society, I guess. So many Vaishnavas out there, you don't have to follow. I just wanted to clarify a little more.
Thank you so much. Yes, Maharaj.
It would seem, and you've indicated, that Bhagavad-Gita was rather ungrateful to his wife. Although she had rendered some service for a seemingly small offense, he actually had her killed. But we also have to remember that this is not Kali Yuga, that this is taking place in, and that even a small offense, mentally, one would get the reaction for it. So when Parasurama had his wife killed, he was actually doing her a favor,
Right.
and that she was purified of that offense, therefore would not have to suffer the reaction for it. Now, her brothers, or her sons, Padmadani's other sons, didn't pay to their father. That was a great offense. So therefore, when Parasurama killed them and his mother, he purified them of that offense and actually did them a favor.
Yeah?
Now, because somehow or another, Padmadani was involved in killing his sons and his wife. Therefore, when the sons of Kartavya Arjuna killed him, they were actually doing him a favor. freeing him from that offense. And of course, Lord Parasuram, he killed everyone and did them a favor.
This is very dangerous preaching, Maharaj, but I like it. This is very dangerous preaching, but I like it.
Well, it's not Kali Yuga preaching.
Right.
Just like it says in the devotion, that if someone blasphemes a devotee or Krishna, then if you're an expert, you can defeat them by arguments, kill their false prestige. And if you're not so expert, then you should cut out their tongue and then take your life. But this is not meant to Kali Yuga. The third cause is you can go away.
Yeah.
So we have two options: either we defeat them or we can go away. Cutting out their tongue is not an option in Kali Yuga. Because it's indicated, it may have been an option in some other time.
Yeah.
So when we're hearing Srimad Bhagavatam, as you pointed out, we should take away the essence and try to understand it according to time, place, and audience, what's going on, so we don't become bewildered by the externals.
Yeah.
And take the valuable part of it.
Thank you so much, Maharaj. Yeah.
Modern thinkers, philosophers, scientists sometimes go away from religion because the stories seem too extraordinary or beyond belief, mythology. And so, the moon mission, many people thought, hey, I saw it on TV, why Guru's saying it didn't happen like that? And sometimes our faith is checked depending on the nature of how we hear about what Indra does, what Parashuram did, this and that. We may agree or not agree as to the stories and the incredible activities that go on. So is it that we're being gullible, naive, and or blindly, having faith in something that just extraordinary if it doesn't have a scientific explanation? Or is it that the people are blinded or want to be blinded, they want to use that as an excuse as to why they don't take up religion?
That's a great question.
Is it?
It is. It's a complicated question.
Again, you're good at complimenting me.
No. I just call them like I see them. But I guess I have to go back. As far as I can only answer as far as I understand. I'm sure there's better answers here. But as far as I understand, everyone is an individual. Srila Prabhupada insisted on this again and again. Nirvishesha Shunyavadi. We're personalists. So in every case, it's different. There may be one person who cannot give up their faith in the moon landing, and therefore they go away because of attachment. And it may be the fact that the devotees didn't show enough care, enough to prove to him that Krishna knows better. And Prabhupada said in a letter, I think maybe it's to Madhu Dvisa, I'm not sure. He said, if you speak something harshly and he goes away, that's your rascaldom. So if we don't provide a safe space for someone to have faith in something beyond their senses, then they may have been sincere, but we didn't properly do our duty in protecting that faith. That's a possibility. Another possibility for another individual is that they may simply just be a rascal and they just have to understand everything with their, fancy little brain and, 6 degrees and whatever, and frog in the well. They may not ever be able to understand anything beyond their own senses. That's their misfortune. We do our duty and give them Krishna consciousness to the best of our ability. But, what the result of that is between them and Krishna individually. So there can't be a one-size-fits-all answer to your wonderful question. Is that okay? So, yes. Oh, yes.
I think this point was touched upon already about unity and diversity. So my question is also related to the same. So you mentioned how we should associate with like-minded people.
Yes.
Before that, I was just thinking, Prabhupada says this, and I was also thinking, you know, how birds, there's an English saying, birds with a feather stick together. So, but then there is also unity in diversity. So, I think you caught my meaning. I wish to hear from you, if you could throw a bit more light in this aspect, that we stick with like-minded people, yet we have this unity in that same beautiful diversity as well.
So there's 24 hours in a day. Hopefully we're awake for them for between 16 and 18 of those hours. The majority of that time we should spend with those that encourage us and help us drive forward in Krishna consciousness according to our own understanding. However, we also, to grow, it's important that we hear from those that have different opinions. So yes, we have to associate the majority of our time with like-minded association, but not neglect or dismiss that association that that our mind doesn't like. Does that make sense? So there has to be some balance. You should always feel encouraged, because the most important thing is that we become joyful in Krishna consciousness. Prabhupada said the first duty of a Vaishnava is to become happy. Brahmabhuta Prasannatma. So first of all, we have to be encouraged in devotional service, but at the same time, to progress in Krishna consciousness, we have to grow by hearing from others that have ideas that haven't occurred to us yet. Is that okay?
Yeah, it's really nice, actually. Thank you, Prabhu.
Thank you.
Because you gave it in a very practical way. I just wanted to, can I just ask another little small thing?
Sure.
So I wanted to hear from you, if you could, keeping that in mind, talk about the unity aspect within ISKCON with what you just said, with that in mind, the unity aspect.
So if we understand the necessity for a certain amount of time being given to hearing from those opinions that are not our own, then we'll naturally gain respect for those opinions, and we'll understand that there's more room within ISKCON than that accommodates our own idea. So in that way, we'll be unified. We may not want to spend the majority of our time with those that have different opinions, but we'll respect them enough to accept them as members of our family. Is that okay? Maharaj?
I'll give a slightly different viewpoint than what you just said.
All right.
According to Srila Rupa Goswami, or according to Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, we only have one business. That whoever we meet, we're supposed to help them become Krishna conscious. Now, how we do that, according to Srila Rupa Goswami, is that we have to develop transcendental discrimination and expertise. So that discrimination is to find those devotees who are advanced in undeviated devotional service, whose hearts are void of propensity to criticize others.
Yes.
And we learn from them how to cooperate with those who are serious about giving up their false egos and engaging in the service of the deity, whether it be the temple deity or Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, spreading the Sankirtan movement. So actually, this idea that we associate with like-minded people means they all have the same idea, that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and that we should serve Him. Now, if we take instructions and examples from those who are more advanced, like Srila Prabhupada, then we can learn how to cooperate with each other. In spite of our differences, we can find the similarity and the unity, and therefore help the innocent people as well as ourselves, because we're advanced in Krishna consciousness. So when we start seeing things in a sectarian way, that's also a manifestation generally of the illusory energy. When we see diversity and try to see the unity in diversity, how we all agree with each other, then in any circumstance we can be effective in serving the previous acharyas of Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu.
Thank you. Thank you.
Just want to give a few pennies contribution on this. Tamal Krishna Maharaj once gave me an example of you have a plate of prasad with so many preparations. And there are some items you like, you prefer them. But the other ones, you may not like them very much, but they're very good for health.
Yeah.
But you eat everything. So in the association, like-minded people, answering the question of Jamuna, you pick and choose people you want to associate with, because it's naturally, you feel inclined, in harmony with those people. However, this is an institution, we are not all the same. It's in the ninth canto, the same canto in the beginning, there is something very interesting from Prabhupada. The tangible proof that we are all individual, that the soul is individual, is that everybody has a different opinion. Even between Radha and Krishna, between Balaram and Krishna went to war, Balaram went to pray. So, but, the lesson is that when it comes to the Maharaj said, when it comes to the crunch, to cooperate together, we have to be unified for high purpose.
Yeah.
And it's good for us. Diversity is also good to practice tolerance. If you live in a brahmachari ashram and you see people are different from you, they talk different from you, you have to tolerate. So therefore, but again, like you said, there's 24 hours in a day, and the majority of the time, you pick and choose the people you want to associate with. But we should never separate. The diversity is part of the package.
Right.
It's part of the play.
The play, yeah. Beautiful, thank you. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, bro.
Hare Krishna. Maharaj's point was very nice. However, we understand that in our philosophies, we have different degrees of devotees' understanding of the philosophy and their advancement. And if someone is an Uttama Adhikari, they have no need to associate with any devotee because they're completely absorbed. So therefore, those who are more advanced, they come down and they associate with other devotees to inspire them to become more sincere in their endeavors. However, there's Prabhupada gave me time, if you associate with a thief for over a period of time, you will become a thief. So those that have, just like we have Srimad Bhagavatam class, we come together and perhaps someone will have an epiphany listening and they will become enthusiastic and make an effort to become more serious in their spiritual life. But it's best to take what knowledge you have and what realizations you have, share them with those that are also like-minded, meaning that they have accepted Krishna to different degrees. And it doesn't mean that you have to continually remain in their company, because immediately after this class, now everyone is, thoughts are absorbed in the discussions that we're having, but you can be guaranteed that 99% of the devotees here will immediately begin to engage in Prajapati right after class. So therefore,
That was positive.
huh?
That was positive.
I'm speaking for myself also.
Let's say 99% of the people sitting on the Vyasasana right now will probably engage in Prajapati.
Yeah, anyway.
That's diverse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much. So it is getting late, but I have nothing better to do than hear from the Vaishnavas. So if anyone has anything else to say, Maharaj?
Generally, we actually want to advance our association for those who are more advanced and not be determined so much by what we like or what we don't like.
Sure.
To be determined by service to our spiritual master and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. Krishna will automatically arrange who he sends, who we associate with, but our desire should be whoever he sends, however we arrange our lives, should be the mood of serving Guru and Krishna.
Excellent answer. Thank you. Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Oh, thank you very much. Kantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai.